Hi, everybody. How are you doing? We are back from summer holiday. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, that you are rested, and you had a lot of fun. It was fine for me. It was lovely. And hello, Marco. Hi. It was lovely. I'm already super, super tired, but it's already 3 weeks I'm back in Milan. So I guess it's all right. I guess it's normal. And yes, so we are all here like every Thursday to carry on reading my fan fiction about Harry Potter. And as you all know, is a tale about Harry Potter adulthood. And yeah, I must do my usual disclaimer. Yes, as every week, I must do it. So I don't make any money out of these tale. Characters are not mine. They are covered by a copyright, which is not mine. So yeah, done that. We can carry on. And yes, I'm just mentioning this because we're about to end the fourth. It's a trilogy, so there are 3 books, and we're about to end the fourth part, the fourth book. And I'm considering to change platform with the second one. I'm still not very sure about that. I still need to ponder on this, but I might go on Twitch. So yeah, not sure. I'll keep you updated, but that might happen. It's gonna be the same day and the same hour, but yeah, on a different platform. We will see. I guess I'll keep the Italian one on YouTube and I'll do the English one over there, but I'll still upload the video on YouTube when I'm done on the other platform. We will see. This is just an idea, so I'll decide like later on. And yes, so our last live was back in July, so we need to do a bit of reminder, I guess, of where we left everybody. And I guess, yeah. So basically, we left Harry in Azkaban. He went there to free Ron, despite he didn't want it. He just done it because Ron attempted suicide. So Ginny asked him as a favor to free him. So he has done it, but is not very happy about it. And yeah, basically, he told Ron that their friendship is over and there is no way they can go back. And he told him as well that he doesn't want to see him anymore. So obviously, he cannot forbid his family to visit him, and he is okay with that. But for him, he is as good as dead. So yeah, not an happy ending. We didn't leave them in an happy moment. So I guess we can start. I'm just gonna drink a drop of water just before to start. And as usual, I'm going to read 3 chapters. And yeah, getting close to the end. We are gonna have these 3 next week, 3 more, and then the last 2. And the next week, there is going to be one of my favorite chapters. So, yes, I guess we can start with chapter 25, which is called Consoling Each Other. He felt a sickness inside, a constriction in his chest that didn't loosen his grip, replacing the hunger that had disappeared the moment he had took that step that brought him home. He's out, he said to Ginny. He didn't want to talk about it. She sensed it and nodded grimly. He went to the bedroom and lay down on the bed, staring at the ceiling without seeing it, lost in unhappy reflections. He knew very well he would miss him, but he realized that lately had become an unhealthy friendship by Ron's side. And Harry, from now on, could never forget that because of Ron he had lost his daughter. It had been an accident, Harry realized it well enough, but it was the drop. He could never see Ron in the same light again. He could not look at him without seeing Lily dropping on the ground by his end. Nevertheless, after having lost a daughter, that day he had lost his best friend too, and none of the two would ever be back. Ginny and Harry decided to get a week off from work. Harry couldn't bear the idea to go there. He would have to face all the curious stares, the possible questions he didn't want to answer, the pity in his colleagues' eyes. He wasn't ready. No yet. The first few days, Harry wanted to avoid staying inside. The silence in the house was overwhelming and unusual. He didn't feel at ease. He was too blatant that something was missing. He preferred to be outside, breathing fresh air and moving. Ginny refused categorically to stay behind. She was a good runner too. They divided their time between running and walking. And while he was doing his workout, she would do her own. Days were cold, but bright. And on the wall, there were soothing moments for them after the turmoil that had devastated their family and minds. They enjoyed each other's company, and it was something that they scarcely had the opportunity to indulge before. They started to have children very young, not because they chose it, but because it had happened. Despite this, they never regretted it. But Harry, time to time, I missed having some time with her alone. Those moments were always few and precious. It helped him to have her with him. It helped him to have her with him. She was very positive and strong minded. After the first few days, she wouldn't weep anymore in front of him. She would just smile and try to be cheerful. He spotted her a few times with rimmed red eyes, but she was trying very hard not to be found out. He got it and didn't mention it. She was doing it for him. She knew he wasn't coping very well, and of the two, he was definitely the more unstable. Harry noticed all this and was grateful. It was indeed helping him not to have her sorrow in front of his eyes all the time. It was heartbreaking to him. It was unfair on her regard, Harry was aware of it. She would have deserved to be comforted. She was suffering as much as him. But he would have only grieved more, being incapable of doing something for her. He was trying very hard for her sake to keep himself up and don't fall into despondency, and that was as much as he could do. By the middle of the week, rain started pouring down, and they were obliged to stay inside. They took refuge in bed, and they started consoling each other the only way they knew how. It was another almost new experience to them. Having always kids in the house made it difficult for them to find the time, energy, and occasion to be intimate, usually being silent affairs during the night when they would be sure not to be disturbed. Now they had all the time they wanted. To Harry, he was a way to escape, to nullify what was surrounding them. For 4 days, they never left the bed, sleeping and talking. Sometimes they would just stare at each other in silence, each lost in their own unhappy thoughts. That's when they started to make love, right before they felt overwhelmed by them, to chase away the dejection. They didn't eat much, neither of them wanted to cook. By Monday, Harry, wearing his jeans to go to work, he would rarely wear his wizarding robe, he didn't feel too comfortable in it, realized that they were a bit loose, and while shaving, he perceived his face slightly sunken. Since Christmas, he didn't take many proper meals, and it was starting to show. He pointed out to Ginny, just out of the shower. Well, if you don't eat, you can hardly expect the opposite, don't you? She said, drying her hair with the towel. Her skin was a nice tinge of pink, warmed by the hot shower. She was still beaded all over with droplets of water. Unlike me, you look lovely and healthy, he said, aroused. He took her in his arms, sucking the drops of water between the neck and the shoulder. He tried to undo the towels from around her body. Why don't we take a couple of days more? He whispered. She laughed. pushing him away gently, readjusting the towel. When is he enough? And then she added more seriously, No, Harry, we need to return to work. It's going to do us some good. Do you think so? I know what does me good, and it's not going back to the office. Trying to pull her against him. But she kept him away. Yes, it is. We need to return to a normal life. We are just pushing away the moment. Harry sighed, looking at his sunken face in the mirror. I don't think I'm ready. You will never be. And if you wait, it's going to be harder, she answered, caressing his back. Now, get out of this bathroom, go down and eat some breakfast while I get ready, she added, suddenly stern, pushing him toward the door. He got to the ministry on time and tried as much as possible to behave as nothing ever happened to him. He wasn't managing very well. He could sense people staring at him morbidly from the moment he put his feet through the entrance. He was difficult to ignore. When he got the lift, he started to grow very uneasy by all this unwanted attention. Thankfully, when he got to his floor, like a breath of fresh air, Elizabeth was there, smiling. She gave him business correspondence and unfortunately still many no worker related envelopes and reminded him of all his appointments. But she didn't ask him how he was or mentioned his absence. He felt grateful, but he couldn't expect the same courtesy from everybody else. His colleagues had solicitude depicted on their faces. They didn't say much when he got there, but by the end of the morning, one by one, they paid him a visit in his office to say a few words of condolence. The woman hugging him and the man shaking hands. It is not that Harry wasn't warmed by their will to show him sympathy. They were all nice and sincerely sorry for him. He appreciated, but it was awkward on both sides. It was difficult to concentrate and try to keep grief under control when everybody was reminding you that you had a very good reason to let go to it. People from other departments weren't as tactful, however, and some of them actually tried to engage him in a conversation about it. Harry couldn't believe it. He had some job mastering his temper and not tell them to fuck off, which proved to be an almost disempowering temptation. By the end of the day, he was exhausted and really dejected. He only wished to see a friendly face that, by the way, probably felt as bad as him. He made for the law enforcement department, looking for Hermione, but she wasn't there. Her office was empty and the light off. He was about to go, thinking she would be in a meeting or somewhere else in the ministry, when one of her colleagues, a blonde, tall witch, called for his attention. Hello, Harry. Are you looking for Hermione Granger? He nodded. Do you know where she is? She didn't come to work today, she said, looking a bit awkward. Actually, she never got back from Christmas holidays. A bell of alarm started to ring in Harry's head. How come? He asked. Well, you know, her husband. We think, she gabbled, riffling through some papers on her desk sheepishly. Okay, I got it. Thank you, he interjected abruptly to save her from the embarrassment and to save himself from hearing condolences again. As he was about to go, she took his arm and, addressing him an unbelievably fake concerned expression, said, Harry, if you feel you want to talk about what happened over a cup of tea at my place, you are welcome anytime. And staring at him meaningfully, she concluded, I'm a great listener, you know. What the hell? I don't even know her name. Are the people insane or what? Um, Thank you, he stammered. You are very kind, but I don't really want to talk about it. And I'm married, for God's sake, any morning. As soon as he was home, He started pacing up and down the living room, waiting for Ginny. He was very worried about Hermione. She was one of those people that lived for work, committed to an almost ridiculous degree. She had to be forced in taking summer holidays. She would never and ever get an additional week off unless something serious had occurred. All kind of dreadful ideas started to spin in Harry's head. It could only be imputed to Ron's behavior. What was the prat making Hermione endure now? In a fit of I'm sorry, in a fit of perverseness, he hoped that she would chuck him for good. Ginny was right. She deserved something better. As he was formulating this thought, Ginny got home, full of shopping bags. Harry released them, placing everything on the kitchen table. How was your day? She asked, starting to empty them. Loosey, he answered, taking the food she handed him and storing it away. Elaborate? He snorted. Awkward moments, stupid question, rude people. Ah, and an offer of an easy shag, masked by a cup of tea proposal. She arched an eyebrow. Better than mine, then. I had them all, but the shag offering. I hope so, he said, closing the cupboard with more energy than he required. I'll make a regret to whoever tries. I better not to tell you then if it happens. You'll tell me, all right. What's all this stuff anyway? There were cakes, biscuits, bread, all seemed homemade. Presents from people at work. You know, Rosemary made the bread, Martha the cake, and the biscuits are from Melissa. She puffed while slumping on a chair. What about these? He asked, taking from the bag a shiny purple sphere all covered with black needles. It's from Luna. She sent it with an owl a few days ago. It's a stone from Nicaragua. It absorbs melancholy, or so she says. She explained, smiling at the baffled look on Harry's face while observing the strange object. And how does it work? Knowing Luna, probably I should work keeping it balanced on my head. She giggled. No, you just leave it on your desk. Charming, he muttered as skeptic, remembering the supposedly crumpled horned snorkack in Luna's place that turned out to be a highly dangerous article that could explode at the slightest touch. He wondered if it was advisable to keep the stone in the house, but in the end, with a shrug, he considered that in case it would explode, the confusion created would have certainly, if not absorbed, at least drove away melancholy, substituting with the practical panic of not letting the house burn down. He placed it on a shelf, together with some family picture. Seeing all the family components in the photo, him included, pressed themselves on the other side of the frame, as far away as possible from the doubtful object, with a clear, preoccupied expression, and they looked at him sulky. He then sat on a chair beside Ginny. Hermione hasn't been to work since the third, he stated. A look of concern passed over her face. Why, do you think? The shag offerer said it was because of Ron. Did she? Has she got a name too? She asked with an arch look. Probably, but I don't know it. Should we check? You check nothing. I don't want you to speak to her again, she hissed, anger flashing in her eyes. I meant checking on Hermione, he replied, trying not to smile. Ah, she regained her composure. Well, we can hardly go and knock at her door. Could you write her a letter? Harry asked imploringly. Why don't you do it? She snapped. Because you are better in writing these things than me. He wouldn't even know where to start, and he didn't want to send her something that Ron could see. Ginny looked at him suspiciously, probably imagining the reason Harry didn't acknowledge. How are we going to send it? They never got an owl, despite it would have been useful and kids were very vocal on it, because in London it would attract too much attention. They would just use the fire normally, but in this occasion, they needed to be able to talk only to Hermione. You just write it. I'll pop by Diagon Alley and I'll borrow Leo from George. Okay, she said, relenting. But you will prepare dinner while I'm writing. I want us to get a proper meal. After you eat, you can go. Yes, mummy, he answered playfully while getting from a drawer some ink and parchment for her. London was quiet, and few people were about at the hour. He took the bus to get to the Leaky Cauldron. They didn't have a car. Harry never learned how to drive one, and this. I'm sorry, Ricky. Just sit down, please. Okay. Harry never learned how to drive one, and it is not that they really needed it. They couldn't use brooms either. It was a bit of a hazard with so many muggles around. So they would use muggle public transport. So they would use muggle public transportation instead. He could have operated there, but Harry liked to get the bus, especially late in the evening when streets were empty. When he got to the Leaky Cauldron, few customers were scattered around the tables, and obviously every eye was on him instantly. He wished he never left I'm sorry. He wished he never left his invisibility cloak to James. It would have been great to wear it right now. He walked as quickly as possible, nodding only briefly to the barkeeper to get inside diagonally, not to be harassed needlessly. And in a second, he found himself there. Here, like the streets of London, was almost deserted. All shops were closed, and everybody was at home trying to keep warm in the cold night. George welcomed him with a tired expression. Hi, Harry. Come on in. I'm having dinner. It's 10 o'clock, Harry pointed out. I know, but I had an idea about a new product and I wanted to try it out. I'm just done. Do you want to join? No, thank you. I've already eaten. It, sorry. It doesn't look like, he affirmed with a critic glance, freeing a chair from a bunch of parchment full of sketches. The house looked hardly any better than the last time he was in it. Probably a bit worse, since together with the dinner on the table was all what he used for his experiment. I haven't been very hungry lately, Harry explained, imagining he was probably referring to his gaunt face. I know, he muttered, subdued, returning to his half eaten pie. Strangely enough, that sentence, as simple and trivial as it was, had a strange effect on Harry. He realized at that precise moment that George truly could figure how he felt. He didn't say that he was sorry or any other ordinary affirmation. He didn't need to. He had lived it all with Fred's death years before, and it's not something that you forget in Harry. He felt less lonely all of a sudden, and much less uneasy. George, I need to borrow Leo, he said as he took the letter from his pocket. I'm worried about Hermione. She hasn't shown up at work for already a week. We want to send her this. He's out hunting, but I will give it to him when he gets back. He took the letter and, glancing distractedly at it, mumbled with hesitation. It is probably because of Ron. Do you know something? What happened? Harry asked Shiger. I don't know exactly what's happening there, but last week Ron showed up for work, he said, putting the letter down and pushing away his unfinished meal. It hasn't been nice. Harry was expecting something of that kind. How come? Well, George started to tell. The trip here wasn't fun. Many people stared at him malevolently. Some of them insulted him more or less openly. There were people from the Daily Prophet and some other magazine that wanted to write an article on what happened. They accused him of murder to have a reaction from his side when he ignored them. And once here, well, he stared in front of him, trying to find the right word. He hid in the back, but he was in a miserable state of mind. He couldn't work. I got there a couple of times to check, and he was just staring at the papers on the desk. After a few hours, I took pity and I sent him home by Chpater. He shook his head. Hermione for sure is having a hard time. I honestly much preferred him when he was angry at you. At least he was responding. Shit, shit, and shit. Why do I have to worry over Ron? Despite the revengeful part of Eric was very well satisfied with with was happening to him, there was also the sensible part that felt pity. In a normal situation, it would have been horrible enough for Ron, but not only he had to endure the sense of guilt in having accidentally killed Lily, but at the same time he had done it in front of Hugo eyes, and the whole magical community considered him the worst of beings. But what it really bothered Harry was Hermione, trapped in that situation without having any fault in it. Harry sighed, passing a hand in his hair. Perhaps Hermione and Ginny were wrong in wanting him out of Azkaban. Perhaps it would have been kinder to leave him there for the time being. George added, looking out of the window where they could see Leo flying toward them. Okay, and this was the end of chapter 25. We have been bothered by my cat. Hopefully, now he's gonna be a bit quieter. I don't know if you can hear him purring. He's like purring like a steam train, but I'm not sure you can hear it. Okay, so I guess we can carry on with the next chapter, which is a chapter I really like, despite it's not an happy chapter. No. Okay. I spoke too soon about my cat. Okay, Ricky, can you be quiet for a second? Okay. So the next chapter is chapter 26, the argument. I'll just get rid of my cat. Okay. The next day at work was much easier as he was so busy with the workload accumulated. He could hardly spare the time to think about his or anybody else's troubles. He was glad of it. Anything that wouldn't allow him to think was welcome. He only got few minutes during lunch to eat something under strict order from Ginny, and then he plunged himself to work again until evening. When he got home, Ginny was waiting for him with Hermione's reply. Dear Ginny and Harry, thank you for your letter and for your concern. Here, things are desperate. I don't know how to handle them. I'm thinking to move with Ron and Hugo to the borough or to my parents. We cannot stay in this house any longer. We keep receiving nasty letters from people. I'm not reading them anymore, but all these owls are starting to attract attention in the borough. We got some haulers too, and those were difficult to hide from Ron and Hugo. Ron is in a dangerous state of mind. I don't want to leave him alone. He won't speak to me. He just stays in bed, catatonic, standing at the wall. He feels all of this dreadfully. Hugo isn't any better. I'm trying to screen him from what is happening, but it's not easy. I'm also very concerned about Rose at Hogwarts. She didn't mention much in her letters, but I'm sure she's having an hard time too. However, I'm glad that she has got James and Albus there. For sure, they won't allow students to bully her. That's a relief. I honestly don't know what is going to happen, and neither I know if and when I will be able to return to work. I'll need to find a solution, but at the moment, my mind is blank. Love, Hermione. So I'm just gonna drink a bit of water. It would be better for them to go to Hermione's parents. In the Muggle world, nobody will pay attention to them, Harry said, after having finished the letter. He felt very much for her. They were getting a glimpse of what he got all his life, but in a nastier shape. Ginny, though, was very much troubled. You must do something for them, she stated. Me? Harry asked in amazement. What should I do exactly? Speak to Ron. Speak to people. Tell them to leave them alone, she said in eagerness. Harry grew very irritated by her sentence. I'm not going to do neither, he said firmly. I told you already how things stand. I'm not seeing Ron again, and surely I'm not going to speak to people, as you said. I've already done what I could taking him out of Azkaban. I'm not gonna do anything else. From now on, he's on his own, he concluded with finality. You are being stubborn and unreasonable. It's not Ron's fault. He's going to end up very badly. And don't you feel for Hermione? You must do something for her, Ginny retorted upset. Her rebuke had only the power to turn the increasing vexation in mounting anger. I've already done something for her. Ron would still be in prison if it wasn't for me, and I don't want to repeat myself again. Call me stubborn if you like, I don't care. I never asked him to kill Lily, he answered, raising his voice. I'm pretty sure he didn't ask you to sleep with Hermione either. He finished in Azkaban just because in the ministry they didn't want to antagonize you. It was the minimum you could do. And now he's getting all this crap from people because of you again. Don't you understand? She shouted at him, upset. Harry slammed his fist on the table and raged. Are you saying that all of this is my fault? Spotting the question furiously. He's paying for something he would never have done. He loved Lily, she yelled in anger and tears. This is happening only because she was your daughter. You must talk to him. He's getting a taste of what he always wanted. Let him enjoy it, he said bitterly. I'm not changing my mind. Before being my daughter, she was a child. The guilt would have been the same. He's reaping the consequences of his action. I'm sorry for Hermione, but there is nothing I can do. How can you be so mean? Mean? Harry shouted in disbelief. How can you accuse me of being mean? I don't want to be his punching bag anymore. He had thrown on me the faults of all his insecurities, of all his problems for years. And see what happened in the end. His heart was pounding in his chest madly at the unfairness of her accusations. I don't want to continue this conversation. It's pointless. I'm going out for a walk. He added in a lower, sharp tone, rushing from the house and slamming the door behind him, leaving Ginny in the kitchen, shaken by a nervous sobbing. Why did the fault of everything had to be his own? He didn't ask for any of these. Why did he have, on the top of everything else, to feel guilty for something he never wanted? He never wanted his life being public. He never wanted Ron to feel overshadowed by him. He never wanted to have Lily's death. Why do I have to feel this guilt? Is it really my fault? Was it me who brought this on myself? Is the suffering not enough? While he was walking randomly, all this hunger and torment burning under his skin, drops of cold rain started to fall from above. He halted and looked at the cloudy sky. No stars, no moon, no redemption in sight. Only a hopeless grey fog surrounding him. He closed his eyes and allowed the soothing drops slide on his face, breathing deeply the icy night air. I just want to disappear now. I don't want to feel anything anymore. He stood there for a few minutes, letting the cold rain fall on him, washing away every distress. When nothing, if not fatigue, was left, he started to get back. He found Ginny on the sofa, hugging her legs and crying silently, not out of nerves now, but in anguish. He approached her, moved by her tears, and hugged her tenderly. He didn't want to argue with her, too. She was the only thing to cling, not to be destroyed by his own emotions. I'm sorry, I shouted at you, he said, conciliating. Oh, Harry, she answered between tears. It's me who has to apologize. I told you horrible things. They were really a low blow. I'm the mean one, not you. And it's not your fault, any of these, she concluded, hiding her face against her knees. You are not mean. Come on here, he said, taking her on his lap. He kissed her salty tears from her cheeks. I'll see what I can do for them, but please, don't ask me to talk to him. I can't. She nodded and put her arms around his neck. Harry, he inhaled the scent of her, and in the feeling of having her close to him, his heart melted in a mix of confused emotions: love, pain, despair, and fear. What am I going to do if she died too? He asked himself, his inside aching. I'm sure I would die with her. I love you, he murmured in her ear. I love you too, she replied. Why? Did he feel like crying? And that was the end of chapter 26. Chapter, as I said, I very much like because, you know, just include together all these like very different emotion, like anger when they have an argument, and then desperation. Oh, Irene, hello. Harry is so dramatic. Oh well, he's very disturbed as well if you think about it. He's just seeing everybody, literally everybody around him dying. Yeah, that creates a bit of trouble in the mind. I'm not surprised. He's a bit panicking at the idea that Ginny could die too. But yeah, I was always saying it includes so many different feelings like clashing, love, and despair, and sadness. I don't know. It's a short chapter. I'm very fond of it. And yeah, I'm sorry. Ricky is having a walk. Okay, so I guess we can carry on with the last chapter of the evening, which is chapter 27, which is called "I Will Miss You a Lot." Okay. That night was sleepless for Harry. His mind was too busy in schemes to make life easier for Hermione and Ron. What could you do? A scheme after another crowded his mind, but none seemed to fit. None would solve the problem. Even in case he agreed to be interviewed on what happened on Christmas, and only the deep love for Ginny and Hermione could bring him to do it, it certainly wouldn't cancel what happened. Ron would still have the stigma, and he would be reminded of it every day in a way or another. And even if he stuck to his resolution not to see Ron, he was sure that pressure would start to come from all directions to make him change his mind. From Molly and Arthur, from Ginny, from Hermione. Harry would have to yield eventually. It was certainly not going to be pleasant for himself, but would it be good for Ron? Somehow, he thought no. He took that decision for both. Both would be reminded continually of what happened to Lily. He was better not to meet. But how could he manage that considering all the family connections around them? He was sitting in bed, his back against the wall, listening to Ginny's breathing on his side. She had fallen asleep straight away, worn out by the crying. He was ready to do anything to see her happy. But this, Harry thought, was beyond him. He was too known there. Nobody will ever forget. And then a sudden brainwave made him sit bolt upright. He knew what he could do. There was something he could try that might work. He wasn't sure it would have made everybody happy, surely not even him at that, but it was the only plan that could work. Silently, he left the bedroom and went to the kitchen, got ink and parchment, and started to write. Once done, he sealed the letter and hid it in a drawer. When he got back to bed, it was almost morning, but his mind, quietened by having found a possible solution, he managed to fall asleep. Barely 2 hours later, he was awake, full of purpose. He waited for Ginny to be out, mumbling some excuses to stay behind, and as soon as she was gone, he retrieved the letter and made for Diagon Alley. Normally, he was always avoiding the place during daytime, unless it wasn't absolutely necessary, like to buy the children's stuff for Hogwarts or to go to Gringotts. He never passed unnoticed, and he was stopped every 3 steps by people wanting to shake his hand or to tell him how grateful they were to him for getting rid of you know who, what he meant to them, who died by his hand, etc., etc. He hated it. It is not that he didn't appreciate people wanting to show him gratitude, and he always tried to be polite to them. But it was vexing nevertheless. It wouldn't happen so often as the beginning, but he still made a small trip last hours sometimes. He was always knackered after any Diagon Alley expedition. That day was worse than ever. An old witch accosted him to say how sorry she was for Lily. Another stopped him for half an hour, talking about every single death happened to her relatives. Somebody is coming through the door.
Sorry.
It's alright. Okay. Where are we? Okay. An old witch accosted him to say how sorry she was for Lily. Another stopped him for half an hour talking about every single death happened to her relatives, her neighbors' relatives, and friends of the neighbors' relatives. Two other again to shake his hands and to sympathize. It took a whole hour to make the scarcely 100 steps that was separating him from the post office. It would have taken less to modify his appearance by magic, and he regretted very much not to have thought about it. The post office was quite busy in the morning hour, but fortunately, a big Tony owl adapted for long trips was available. He paid the silver sickle required. He paid the silver sickle required, and tying the letters to the owl's leg, told him the address. He watched him fly in the gloomy sky, praying it would come to something, because if this failed, he didn't know what else he could do. The rest of the week passed by without any news from Hermione. She was still not showing up for work, but on Sunday, Harry got a short note from her informing that the following day she had intention of returning to the ministry and asking him if he was willing to go together. With a jolt, he answered in the affirmative, and the next morning was waiting impatiently for her at the corner of the street. She appeared from the usual small alley where she could apparate not seen by anybody. She was wearing her business suit. She, unlike Harry, was very formal in her appearance when going to work, despite it wasn't strictly necessary. Her bushy hair was wild as usual, and she had a very tired face, gaunt and pallid. That didn't stop Harry to be happy to see her. They were often meeting to work together. They could just apparate both there from their respective places, of course, but they liked to share that moment in the morning. It gave them a chance to chat. Despite the work, the time spent together was nevertheless a lot, as their respective departments were linked together, working elbow to elbow. They helped each other in very tight spots time to time, and Harry's job was much easier with Hermione's collaboration. Nothing seemed to work without her. I'm not gonna ask you how you're doing, he said, starting to walk with her at his side. And me neither, she answered. How's Ron? He asked. By the answer, he would have known anyway how she was. Better, I believe. We are my parents. It's much quieter there, and he discovered a whole new world with television. I don't think he's healthy, but at least he's not in bed anymore. Harry nodded. It has been wise to move there. It won't be for long anyway, and I'm sure you know why, she said without looking at him. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You can fool Ron, but not me. You wrote to Charlie. How could you possibly know otherwise what was happening? Where could you get the idea to try to convince Ron to move there if somebody didn't suggest it to him? I realized it could just be either you or George. Molly and Arthur would never have done it. He didn't answer and kept walking. It was good thinking, I have to admit, and Charlie has been very convincing with Ron. I hate the idea to leave England, but we haven't got any other choice. Ron will never be able to get over it here. But in Romania, nobody will know him there. We can start a new life. All this was said suddenly, even if Harry could detect dejection in her tone of voice. When are you leaving? He asked subdued. His plan had worked, and that was his only consolation. Ron is going in 2 or 3 days with Hugo. Charlie, Cleo, and Yon are waiting for them. They will help out looking for a place. It will keep him busy, and Charlie thinks there might be a vacancy in their import-export office. That would be great for him. It's kind of the same job he's doing now, but being dragons involved, I hope he will like it better. She sighed and continued purposely. For what concerns me, I will have to stay here at least a month to sort out everything at work. We'll keep the house, I think. The idea is to return in England for summer holidays, so hopefully Rose will be able to keep attending Hogwarts. We will see for Hugo when the time comes. He might have to go to Durmstrang. It's closer. This was just what Harry was hoping. The only sensible thing to do. He had considered himself more than once to leave England for a country where he would pass unobserved, but Ginny wouldn't hear of it because of her family. And Harry liked his job. So, in the end, it had come to nothing. But for them, it was life saving. All the novelty would have kept Ron busy and interested, and there wasn't anybody there reminding him of what he had done. It was sensible and well planned, but it didn't stop Harry to keep thinking how much he would have missed her. The law enforcement is going to go to the dogs without you, he lamented. Who's going to take your place? I don't know for sure yet. I still have to speak with the minister for my resignation. But I imagine either Richard Langdon or Elena Hairhast, Hermione said, reflecting. Do I know them? Richard is the big bloke with dark hair sitting close to the window, and Helena is the tall blonde one that sits close to my office. I think they are both. Harry didn't let her finish, alarmed. The bloke, pick the bloke! He stopped in the middle of the pathway suddenly, taking her hands in his own. Please, Hermione, this is important. Pick the bloke. Hermione snorted annoyed. Can I know why? So Harry recounted in a few words of the encounter with Elena. You just need to swap talking over a cup of tea and listen with a single word, and you understand what she meant. I tell you, it was quite explicit. Even me couldn't fail to grasp it, he said keenly. She slid back her hands and started to trot briskly, leaving him behind. Harry, first of all, I'm not the one choosing. But you can influence. he said, keeping up with her. And second, she continued, ignoring him, it would be unfair. She's as capable as him. Hermione, if she gets picked, I will be in a dead end. It will be very awkward to work with her, not to say impossible if I don't shag her. If I do, it's going to be the time that Ginny chuck me forever, he said in desperation. Do you want this? Do you want me to have to choose between job and family? She rolled her eyes. Are you not exaggerating a bit the wolf thing? No, I'm not. Definitely not, he said, eager. All right, I'll see what I can do, she muttered, defeated. Cheers, Hermione, you are the best, he said, patting her shoulder happily. Ha, and Hermione, he added to get her attention just before reaching the entrance. What else? I will miss you. Hello. Oh, Harry. And two big tears poured from her eyes, rolling swiftly on her cheeks. And that was the end of chapter 27. 27? Yes. So, yeah, I guess we are all done for tonight. We read our 3 chapters. And yeah, I guess we will see each other next week on Thursday again at 9 o'clock. And yeah, 3 more chapters. As I say, there is going to be a chapter I really, really like, one of my favorites. Thank you, dear. Thank you too, Irene. Thank you. I wasn't expecting you tonight. I'm very surprised. I'm very happy. So yeah, guys, I'll see you. I'll see you next week. And yeah, so I wish you all a good night. And it was a pleasure to have you here. Good night.